Hi, everyone, and welcome to Get Hired Live. I'm your host, Andrew Seaman, the LinkedIn Senior News Editor for Job Searches and Careers. As always, I want to welcome you to the show and ask you to introduce yourself in the comments. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you're looking for work, what your plans are for your career, because we love hearing those stories, and we already have so many people introducing themselves in the comments. We have Adarsh from India, Manawara from Toronto, who I think is a regular viewer, so welcome. Rich from Colorado, Robin from California, Juvenito from Brazil, Cecile from Seattle. We have Kasif from Pakistan and Kumar Naidu from India. So like I said, keep introducing yourself in the comments. And also what I want you to do is network with each other. So if you see someone who's maybe from your region of the world, or maybe a part of the world where you want to work, or an industry where you want to work, or maybe someone who's job searching in the same way you are, connect with each other, because networking is the cornerstone of a successful job search. And what better time to start than right now? And always make those connections, and make sure you're doing that even beyond the show in your job search and just throughout your career, because it will pay dividends in the future. And we have such a great guest today and such an important topic to talk about. We're going to be talking about job search strategy. So I want to welcome to the screen T. Cooper, who is a resume writer and a certified career coach. Welcome, T.
Hi, Andrew. Thank you for having me. How are you
Of
doing today?
course. I'm well, thank you. How are you doing?
Wonderful.
Great. Well, welcome to the show. And we're having so many people introduce themselves in the comments. We have Donna from Massachusetts, Kyle from Houston, Derek from Colorado, Amy from Virginia, Michelle from Arkansas, Simon from Toronto. So we have a strong Canadian contingent in there, and people from all over the globe. And I hope that they will also get their questions in, because we will be taking them in just a little bit. And T, one thing that we were talking about before the show is job search strategy. And I think a lot of people, when they go into a job search, especially if they're sort of thrust into it without notice, they just start applying everywhere, hoping for the best. And that's usually not the best approach. So why should people have a good job search strategy?
Yeah, of course. So, first of all, having a good job search strategy is going to give you ammunition. It's going to give you confidence, and it's going to allow you to go out there and seek opportunities that better align with you. What we see and find most is that people who craft a strategy are able to capitalize on their branding and match that to the company's pain points, right? What it is that they're looking for and wanting you to come into their organization to do. So no more, or should you be out there trying to capture any job?
Yeah, no, I think that's really important, because a lot of people, they look for any job, and when in reality, if they do a good job search strategy, they can find the right job, which is so important. And what are your tips for people who say, okay, well that's great, but how do I actually form a job search strategy that is healthy and sustainable and will lead to success?
Right. So the first thing you want to do is take a look at what you have, what your skills are, right? One thing, and I posted about this earlier this week. What we see is people go into their job search strategy looking for roles that are identical to what they used to do. That may be something that but however, you're stating, I don't want to do this. I don't like this about that previous role or whatever. You want to find out what it was that you were good at, what it is that you like to do, and then find those jobs that relate, right? And you want to have a list so that you understand that those are your non-negotiables in terms of your skill set and what it is that you're willing to do. Because if not, then what you do is you find yourself becoming a job hopper. Is that bad? No, for some people in some industries, it's not. It doesn't work for all industries though. But if you find out what it is that you like to do, what it is that you did well, you align that with the accomplishments that you have in your career, because that's what's going to set you apart from the next candidate. Your accomplishments, being able to quantify those accomplishments so that the hiring manager can see how you benefit them, right? You want to show benefit and value on both sides. And then constructing a resume that makes sense. Many times, a lot of us, we may have had experience early on in our career with jobs that don't necessarily align right now. So you want to go in and take out the things that are irrelevant. If it's not relevant today, then remove that. The hiring manager is not looking at that. They want to see information that pertains to the job that you're going to be doing now, because that's what they're bringing you into the organization for. So if you, let's say, for instance, let's back that up a little bit. So if I'm in my job search strategy, I have my resume and I'm looking over at the position, you think you're doing a great thing when you're writing all of your skills. No, that is absolutely wrong. You're either overqualifying yourself or you're overwhelming the hiring manager or recruiter because they don't see the actual skills in that benefit their organization. You want to show benefit the entire time, and that's what being on brand is all about. So establishing your career brand, that's going to be across LinkedIn, that's going to be on all social media actually, and getting out there and networking. I'm seeing people on other social media sites or apps, Clubhouse, get hired on the spot or get interviews on the spot because they are speaking out about what it is they're needing and wanting, and they are highlighting those skills that are most important to them and the hiring manager that they're looking to work for.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. And, and one thing I do want to take a moment just to recognize some of the people who are joining us. And I think what you're saying is resonating with a lot of them. We have Dana from Texas, Craig from New Jersey, Talwana from Dubai, Mike from Sacramento, Deb from Boston, Kentrell from Atlanta, Dev from India, Bia from Florida, Elisol from Texas, and Mabuta from North Carolina. So I want to say welcome to all of you, and also get your job search questions in because we're going to be taking them in just a bit. But T, one question I wanted to ask you too is there's a lot of people who I think, they have started their job search. They've been job searching maybe for a couple months now or a couple weeks. And it's not too late to start a job search strategy or revamp your strategy, even though you're already in the middle of a search, right? You could do it basically where you are right now, right?
Yeah, you can start right now. A lot of the clients that come to me, they've submitted to hundreds. Maybe it's been, I'll say between 3 and 100. How many? That's one of the questions I ask. How many interviews or how many times have you submitted your resume? And I've had people say they've submitted their resume 100 times. So if you've submitted your resume 100 times and you're not seeing the results, that's because you're not aligning your value with what the organizations you're looking for, what they're looking for, right? So it has to make sense. So there's a lot of career changers. The pandemic made us see things a lot differently. So a lot of people have decided, I've done this long enough, or I don't really like this, so I'm going to switch gears and do something different. So when you're switching gears, you want to make sure that you're pulling out the skill sets that matter to where it is that you're going and what you're focusing on now, because first of all, it's going to alleviate the stress for you, right? You're not going to feel overwhelmed. Once you have a strategy, it actually helps with confidence as well, because now you're no longer just submitting and hoping, right? You have that skill set that matches what you're looking to do now. So now you and that hiring manager or those recruiters, you're on par with each other, right? So you're going to start to see more callbacks. You're going to get in front of those interviews. You're going to have a lot more confidence when your strategy is working.
Yes. And we have a question here from Martha who asks, what is a good strategy for someone in their 60s? Because older job seekers, they tend to have more difficulty getting hired. They tend to be unemployed longer than younger job seekers. So what is your suggestion for people who are older? Is there anything that they should be doing differently?
Yes. So this goes for everyone, actually. What you want to do is make sure that you are not there's such thing as ageism, right? You want to make sure that you don't have that discrimination out there on your resume. So a lot of older candidates, you have a lot of experience. So you want that experience out there. That is not necessarily a good thing. If it's 10 years or older, sometimes if you're going to an exec role, 15, 20, may be okay to put on your resume, but honestly, what you were doing back then is irrelevant now because technology is so different, right? So you want to make sure that the skills that you're highlighting are pertinent to today. you are listing 10 years in current, right, of your experience so that you're not highlighting. So take those years of graduation off of your resume, and make sure you don't back up too far past 10 years. That's the most relevant experience, because at that point, the hiring manager has to meet you. Then it's on you selling yourself.
Yeah. And also, one thing that I always recommend to people who are older is when they get into interviews or they're going through the process, don't ignore ageism, but don't walk in there feeling like your age
Exactly.
is going to be used against you, because I think a lot of people have insecurities, whether it's age, whether it's how you look, things like that. And if you go in there with that in mind, you may be a little bit more shy, you may not be as confident, and really you want to exude confidence when you go into an interview. So don't go in assuming that they're going to be ageist against you, or even if they are, go in there confidently and know that you control the room just as much as they do, because I think that also helps people overcome a lot of those issues. And if you're confident and you can speak to the job requirements just as good as anyone else, then they're not going to pick up on your insecurities and all of that. So I always recommend to walk in there with confidence, and hopefully,
Absolutely.
yeah. And we have a question here from Julie, who asked, should you reapply for a job that you interviewed for previously and was not selected? And, sometimes people see positions that are open for a long time, or maybe they see a similar position there that they've already gone for. What's your recommendation for those situations?
Yes, of course. So I like to say at least give it about 6 months, because the hiring manager, they have you in the system. So if they use a tool. So when they're looking for a certain role, your skill sets are going to pop up. So you want to give it about 6 months, especially if you know that interview didn't go so well, or if you were on the mark on the cuffs and someone just beat you because of sheer skill set. Then what you can do is you should, because we're connecting, right? We're connecting with hiring managers and recruiters after. So what you can do as well is you can send them a LinkedIn message and let them know that you saw that your skills fit, if you want to do that ahead of the 6 month time frame. But any time earlier, within that, especially 1 to 3 months, you're kind of still fresh on their mind a little bit in terms of skill set, especially if the interview went really well. They'll reach back out to you because you're in their matrix.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. And it's also another good reason to network and stay in touch with the hiring manager and the recruiters to basically say, hey, listen, I know I wasn't selected for this role, but if there's something else that maybe you think I'm better suited for, I'd be happy to listen to that opportunity or learn about it. And I think a lot of people, they sort of close the door on it, or they try and start fresh, but a relationship's ongoing. So, always keep that door open. And we have another question here about hiring, and it's from Yassine, who basically says, do hiring managers just search keywords and skim resumes, or is that incorrect? And so obviously there's a lot of anxiety over applicant tracking systems. And I guess what I always tell people is, don't worry too much about applicant tracking systems. They're basically the filing cabinets that recruiters use to sort people. But what should people know about, keywords and how resumes are actually reviewed inside a company?
Right. So unless it's a really small company, the hiring manager is not reviewing your resume, right? It's the recruiter reviewing your resume, and they get assistance from the applicant tracking systems, ATS, right, to select the best candidate. So there are different things that will knock you out. For instance, if they need a certain education requirement, if there's absolutely a certain skill set that must be there are things like that that will knock you out. So when it comes to tying the applicant tracking system and your skill set, you just want to basically make sure that when you're doing your resume, if you have the skills that the job description is asking for, that you for sure get those skills within your resume, because they will help you to show up as a better match. So you want to be a match, basically.
Yeah, and you know, like you said, a lot of people, they think a computer's rejecting them or something like that. And like you
Mhm.
said, if you answer a question wrong when you're applying, so it says, "Do you have this experience?" or "Are you certified in XYZ?" and you automatically get rejected, it means that that is a minimum qualification for that position. And in some
Exactly.
cases, the federal government might even set that if it's you know, a specific job for the government or something like that. You may need to meet certain requirements, and they're not going to have you go through the rest of the process to even apply if you don't meet those
Exactly.
qualifications. So and the other thing that I always tell people is read the instructions, because a lot of times they'll say, should I, you know, apply using, you know, Microsoft Word or a PDF document and all this stuff? And it's like, just read sort of as you're applying, and usually it'll say upload your Word document, upload a Word or PDF and things like that. And the applicant tracking system, even though people don't know it, is when you're applying on a computer or a company's website, you're actually inputting your own information into an applicant tracking system. So you're using it just really as much as the recruiter is, just on the front of it. So read the instructions, read them carefully, because that's going to increase your odds of success with that. So but yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's you know, important, like you said, to remember that the keywords are important, but they're not just, the hiring managers aren't skimming the resume. And we have a question here from Dana, and this is also a good question. Is there a good way to cold call, in quotes, a potential employer? And I think really the larger question is, how do you reach out to a potential employer? Do you go for a recruiter? Do you try and find a hiring manager? What's the best approach there?
Right. So the thing is, the recruiter is your best friend, right? So it's very important to, okay, let's back this up. So you're on LinkedIn, right? So you guys, everyone that is here, you're doing it right off back. So you want to make sure that you are making those connections before you need them, especially in the industry. Connect with all the recruiters, even if they're not in your industry. The reason being is because you want to make the job easy for them. Make it easy for the recruiter. I always say that with my clients. And the reason being is because just as much as you don't want to be out there looking, they don't want to be out there searching for their diamond in the rough forever, because that's how they're paid. So the way to make that easy is connecting with them ahead of time. If you want to reach out to them, reach out to them. It's okay. They're people just like you and I, but don't be too aggressive. You know, a good 1-2 liner in their inbox. Hi, you know, I thought it'd be great to connect. Something like that is great. You know, talk about the skill set that you have that matches their job description, and leave it at that. You know, some people get overwhelming when it comes to the follow up. Don't do that. So connect in advance, right? And then make sure that, you know, you're making it easy for the recruiter when it comes to them looking at your resume. They should be able to look at your resume and say, oh yes, I want to meet this candidate. And here's a tip of the day. You guys take this with you. One way of you being able to do that is making sure that you have a title on your resume. So whatever the recruiter is calling that job description, that job title, it needs to be up top at your resume, because then it gives them an opportunity to know that you're not just submitting your job to your resume to any and all opportunities. This is actually an opportunity that you are targeting. So make sure that you have that on your resume. It's very important.
Yeah, no, I think those are all really good pieces of advice. And like you said, a recruiter is actually your best friend, because I think a lot of people, they view recruiters as sort of these angry gatekeepers, when in reality, you know, they're trying to find the best person for the job as quickly as possible. So they're the ones that are actually trying to keep the process going. And if things slow down, it's usually because of something else inside the company
Yeah.
and not the recruiter. And we actually, you mentioned skills and things like that. And Katrina asked, do you have to match the skills 100% because it's not always clear from the job descriptions?
No, you do not have to match the skills 100%. You just want to make sure that it's an obvious fit, right? Or it makes sense. So, you know, if you are at least 80 guys, if you're at least 80% of a match, that's usually really good enough for them to, at that point, look at. It's all about presentation. So branding, Make sure your LinkedIn, your photo is on point. You want to make sure that your resume is, up to date. Your resume says so much about you. A hiring manager is determining how much they're going to pay you from the look of your resume. They're determining your skill set, even though it may be listed, by looking at your resume, they're determining how upbeat and forward thinking by looking at your resume. There's a lot that can go into a resume besides the information that's on it. So the layout of it, the structure of it, it's a part of your brand. So you want to make sure that you're presenting your brand. If you're looking for 100K and above role, it needs to make sense. If you're looking for a role, 30 to 50, it all needs to make sense, because in either of those positions, you can overqualify yourself or underqualify yourself. You may feel that you deserve that 100K and above. However, you're presenting a 30K resume, right? Because you're not talking about the accomplishments. You're not talking about the leadership in your resume. So it all, at the end of the day, has to make sense. It has to be on par with your brand, as well as the values of the organization and what it is that they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it all comes down to, can you do the job? And even if you don't match the skills 100%, maybe you don't need those other 3 skills that they list, but you have something else that you could bring to the table that's even more important. So I think what you said is so important. And we have a question here from Kanal, who says, what stands out on a resume to better your chances of getting an interview? Is there anything on a resume that you can do to increase your odds of getting an interview?
The number one thing that makes the most sense and needs to be there are the skills, because that's what you need to do the job. And it needs to be a mix of hard and soft skills, so learn skills as well as personable skills. But, you don't want to be so much of the, I'm a people person or a team player. You do want to make sure that you talk about the skills that align with what they have posted in the job description.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And Amy asked, how should I follow up after a second interview? So we already talked, obviously, about how you reach out to a potential employer, but how should you follow up during the process? Because I think a lot of people, they don't want to bother the recruiter or the hiring manager too much, but what should they do?
Right. So, of course, immediately after the interview, what you want to do is send a thank you note. If that is also an opportunity, if, let's face it, right? We all have that point in the interview. Sometimes I could have answered that a little bit better, or whatever the case may be. That's an opportunity for you to clear up that, right? Then after that initial reach out, you want to give it about 7 days, kind of gauging on when they're looking to have that role filled. And it also kind of depends on the position. So that should be one of your questions in the interview. How soon are you looking to fill this role? Once they answer that question, that'll let you know how often you should follow up. If they're looking to fill that role within the next couple of weeks, then you want to follow up the next business day, and then follow up a week later, right? If they're looking to fill that role within the next couple of months, that's going to be, of course, for your executive level roles. Then you want to follow up the next business day, then follow up bi-weekly, and then until you hear something, or they'll give you an idea, okay, so we're at this stage, and then we'll follow up with you. They may say within the next 3 weeks. So you let them have that moment for the 3 weeks, and then you follow up the next week after that. So kind of gauge it on what they tell you and how soon it is that they're looking to get that role filled.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good suggestion. Like you said, look for those cues. If they say, hey, we'll be getting in touch within about 3 weeks, then, like you said, give them that time. Don't sort of pester them after 1 week. Hey, just wanted to check in or something like that, because they probably have a lot of other things that they're doing. And we have a question here, and I think a lot of people are going through career changes right now. And Cantrell asked, what are some strategies for career changers? Because I think a lot of people, they sometimes they feel inadequate when they change careers. Maybe they don't have as much experience as other people in a specific field. So what is your suggestion for people who say, I want to try something new?
Yeah, of course. So what you want to do is take an inventory of the skills that you have, right? Take an inventory of the skills that you have. look at the roles that you're interested in. And if you're not really sure in which direction you want to go, it's probably time to get a professional involved, because they're going to help you to figure out, what is it that you like doing well, some things to look at. And people don't think about this in the job search, right? Or do you want to go with a large company? Is a small company a better fit for you? Some people do much better in small companies because the growth opportunity is there. In a small company, you're going to work, right? But the growth opportunity is there. They're going to be a little bit more lenient and understanding on the flexibility side and different things like that, because they're building. So they're looking for you to come in and fix their problem. On the larger company side, things are more established. There's going to be a lot of structure, and the flexibility may not be there, and the growth may be slow. So there's a lot of things you have to look at, and when you're getting ready to go into a job search, it's more than just applying to an organization. Because if I'm looking to move fast, then I don't need to look at organizations that are really huge, right? Because that's not the trajectory or the path that I want to be on. So I'm gonna make sure that when I look at different opportunities, I'm looking at those opportunities that with smaller companies. So understand which company you want to go to, understand the skill set that you're bringing to the table, make sure that your skill set, of course, is highlighted up top of your resume, and you have your accomplishments. You're selling yourself based on, the few skills that you do have to bring into that next organization or next industry, as well as what you have accomplished. You guys don't understand how important accomplishments are on a resume. They help you to stand out against the other candidate, because this says I'm not just in the organization coming to work on a daily. I'm actually in the organization contributing to change and making things happen.
Yeah, no, I think those are really good points. And we have a comment here from Kanal who says that they made a career change a month ago and have never looked back. Build your network within LinkedIn for who and what job you're focused on. And I think building your network is always important. And you mentioned accomplishments, and we have a question from Sandra who says, do accomplishments on the resume need to be tailored to the job as well? I think a lot of people, they sometimes wonder about how to tailor your resume for a specific job. Do they have to start from scratch, or should they just make tweaks here or there? What's your suggestion for people who, are in that spot?
Yeah. So the first thing you want to do is, when it comes to your resume, your accomplishments do need to make sense for what it is that you plan to do now. You don't have your resume, so your accomplishments should be more on the general side in terms of what you're highlighting if you're a career changer, but it needs to make sense for that role, right? The most important thing is to make sure that it is quantifiable. So when you're setting up your accomplishments, think about it like this. What was the problem and how did you fix it? What was the result of that, right? So that's what hiring manager, it tells a story. I don't know if you guys are familiar with, but that's how you tell a story in a resume. So here's the problem. This is what I did to fix it. And here's the result.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good roadmap for people. And I've never heard it put that way, but I think that's a really good equation for them to follow. Thank you. And I think, we have a time for one more question. And this one is one that I think can resonate with everyone, from Kyle, which is, how do you establish your professional brand? Because a lot of people, they hear that and they're like, oh, that's not for me, or I'm just looking for a frontline job, or I'm looking for, sort of an entry level gig. But how should people view their professional brand, and how should they sort of establish it?
Yeah, of course. So we're all a business. Whether you want to be a business or in business, we're all a business. We're representing ourselves as a business, right? But no one thinks about that, because we're like, oh, I'm going to work for somebody. I'm not a business. I would never own a business. You own a business. You are the business. So how you do that is by showing up as who you are. So on LinkedIn, that may be you talking, being a part of the industries that you are being a part of the industries that you work in, right? That may be you doing little things as making sure your picture is on par to, if I'm a doctor, I may have on my doctor coat. Can't think of the name of it right now, or scrubs, right? If I'm in pharmaceutical, it may be pills or prescriptions in the background on my branding board. I am making sure that when articles come up that make sense, that are on target for what it is that I do, I'm interested, I'm giving a little bit of feedback. So I am starting to give that expert level advice there. And same thing within your organization. Being on brand means that, you're there, you're becoming a subject matter expert in what it is that you do, and people are relying on you for information. Like, they know, doctor such and such does this, or director such and such does this. So you're just being on par with who it is you are in your field.
Yeah, no, I think that is a really good way to view it. And, what's nice is too, if, for career changers out there, you could change your brand, you can morph it into something else. So it's not like you're stuck in that brand forever. I used to be a medical reporter a long time ago, and obviously I don't do that anymore. So it takes a few steps to change your brand, but you can eventually get there. But obviously, T, your brand is as a certified career coach and resume writer. And I hope people were following along at the bottom of the screen, because we've been flashing your LinkedIn profile, and I hope they follow you.
Yes. I'd love to have you guys.
Yeah, and thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And so thank you, T. And obviously thank all of you for joining us as well. And, I hope you will tune in next week. We're here every Friday at 11 a.m. And next week we'll have Sarah Johnston, who is the founder of Briefcase Coach. We'll be talking about interview prep and obviously taking your job search questions. That's Friday, August 13th, lucky Friday the 13th at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And if you check back on the LinkedIn news page where this show is airing right now, you could also check every day, because we have these wonderful programs even when I'm not on air. And on Monday, my colleague Nina Melendez will be talking about the dog who talks. And I mean, what's better than a talking dog? So my colleague Nina Melendez is talking with a speech pathologist about how she taught her dog to communicate and what we can learn from how we give and receive information. That's at 3 p.m. Eastern time, Monday, August 9th, on the LinkedIn news page. And obviously, again, that's the dog who talks. I taught my cats to talk, but they give me the silent treatment. What am I to do? But anyway, until Friday, I hope you are safe and well. Remember to take care of yourself. You can only be a good candidate. You can only get hired if you're well enough to do so. So until next time, best of luck.